Australian Aviation Podcast, the official podcast of Australian Aviation, unpacking the latest insights, developments and issues impacting Australia's aviation sector.
Hello, I'm Jake Nelson. Welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I'm coming to you once again live on location from scenic Honolulu, which only coincidentally rhymes with flu. Yes, Honolulu, home to the world's most stationary palm trees, and home to people who spread the joy of Christmas at Christmas carols over the weekend. And by joy of Christmas, I mean the influenza A virus. It should be illegal for the flu to be able to infect anyone in December. There should be a law against that. Anyway, I'm here as always with my co-host, the deputy editor of Cyber Daily and patient zero for the zombie apocalypse, David Hollingworth.
Brains?
I haven't seen any, but I'll let you know.
Oh, brains. I think you're absolutely right. It's very much against the spirit of Christmas to come down with the flu this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, what is this, America? Well, I suppose if it was America, I'd be in a lot more medical debt right now.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
If you have not seen it on your desks already, or if it has not yet hit your doorstops, you should be very, very soon, fingers crossed, seeing the landmark 399th issue of Australian Aviation magazine, covering the last few months. This is our November to February issue, so the summer issue of Australian Aviation, featuring an exclusive look at what Alan Joyce said about the future of Australian aviation during the Australian Aviation Summit earlier this year. We've also got my trip reports from the Qantas A321 XLR and the Virgin E190 E2. We have got a beautiful, if I do say so myself, pictorial look at the inside of Western Sydney International Airport as it gets ready to open next year. We've got a look at Koala Airlines, the upstart carrier that is planning to take flight late next year, and finding out exactly what their plans are. 100 years of RAF Base Richmond in pictures, courtesy, of course, of Defence. And we've got a whole bunch of other goodies in there as well. We've got a Q&A on hidden disabilities. We've got features and extracts from Captain Michelle Huntington, of her book, Lady MacGyver, and all the usual regulars like Warbirds, Traffic, the Archive. It's a jam-packed issue, and it is almost 400 issues for Australian Aviation, so we're probably going to be planning something very, very special.
That's a hell of a milestone. Congratulations.
Sorry, David?
That's a hell of a milestone. Congratulations.
It is a hell of a milestone. I wish I could take credit for all of it, but if I did, I would be a lot older than I am now. Now, we did have a comment that I wanted to bring up, because you'll be kicking yourself, David, that came up on TikTok about a video of us from a couple of weeks back, talking about the ban on power banks on board Australian planes. At Melbourne, Kevin says, Dave's comedic comment about offboarding fiery fuel cells via a laundry/garbage chute arrangement was actually brilliant. Should have patented the idea before releasing it into the public domain. Boeing and Airbus would have paid millions for the design rights. I've
open sourced it. It's my gift to the world.
Creative Commons. There you go.
Exactly, yes.
On Jetstar's Newcastle Sunshine Coast to Bali and on to Singapore plans, this will no doubt be in recognition that Jetstar Asia's only profitable route would have been Singapore, Singapore. So they're capitalizing on this while introducing new flights from regional Australia to Bali, not counting on Novocastrians and Noosa travelers wanting to fly to Singapore with a stopover in Denpasar. Expect to see Jetstar Australia introduce more surprising one-stop Asia destinations to backfill demand from abandoned Jetstar Asia routes via one-stop flights from Australia, capitalizing on their experience with which routes worked and which routes did not. Insightful comment there. Thank you, at Melbourne Kevin on TikTok. Let us get straight now into the week's news, partially ably handled by our colleague Rob Doherty when I have been here in Honolulu, sweating, shivering, and coughing up several lungs.
How many lungs do you have?
Oh, too many.
Well, are they all your lungs?
I don't want to answer that question on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
Brains.
But there has been a fair amount of talk, about airfares, because last week the Transport Minister Catherine King basically came out and said why the government has not implemented or been thinking of implementing this EU-style pay-on-delay compensation scheme. Now, are you familiar with EU 261, David?
I'm afraid I'm not. You might have to fill me in on this one.
Yeah, it's this European Union regulation that basically states that if a flight is delayed delayed or cancelled unreasonably due to circumstances within the airline's control, the airline has to compensate passengers. Canada, I believe, has a similar scheme. And the Biden administration in the US also introduced a similar scheme, which was tossed out on its ear by the Trump administration.
I was just going to say, yes.
But so there's been a lot of chatter about the possibility of pay on delay here in Australia. And Catherine King, the transport minister, said that basically Europe has a lot larger of a population than Australia. And an EU 261 scheme works over there, but the Australian market is too small to sustain one. She said it's costly to administer compensation schemes. Those costs are generally passed on to passengers. I didn't want a scheme that was going to send ticket prices skyrocketing. They've already been pretty high. They're sort of plateauing a little bit more and coming down a little bit, but post-COVID, the demand is really strong there. She said, we love to travel, so that was one of the things I had to balance, but we want to make things better and get continuous improvement for people, for the traveling public. So basically, the minister has sort of accepted this argument from the airlines that having this compensation scheme would translate through to ticket prices. And this has been sort of a controversial assertion, especially because, there's been consumer advocates here who've pointed to the scheme in the EU and said the impact on ticket prices over there has been negligible. I suppose the impact from, the argument from the government there would be yes, but Europe is a much larger market with sort of bigger airlines and more diverse airlines and a bigger population. And so it's easier to spread the costs around. What do you think of this, David?
I mean, I think there's a point. That larger population can obviously make up for that extra cost on the pay on delay. So I'm kind of with the minister on this one. At the same time, is she letting the airlines ride roughshod over her?
It could be. It's historically there's been a lot of accusations of government being a bit too cozy with the airlines here in Australia, particularly Qantas.
Well, they all want their memberships for the Chairman's Lounge.
Yeah, the spectre of the Chairman's Lounge looms ever large. But this came, by the way, a little under a week before the ACCC released its latest domestic airline competition report, which found that there was very high demand for domestic air travel in September and October, and that put pressure on seating capacity and drove up airfares. So in October 2025, domestic airlines carried over 5.5 million domestic passengers, 3.8% higher than October last year. It was the second highest passenger numbers recorded for any month since January 2019, which is the earliest month that the ACCC has been monitoring the domestic airline industry. So September and October are usually busy months, but this time both the AFL and the NRL had interstate teams in the finals, according to Anna Breakey, the ACCC commissioner, which led to additional demand for Melbourne and Sydney travel. So Qantas Group and Virgin Australia combined added more than 45 additional flights to their networks to service this high demand. Overall seating capacity increased by 4.5% in October 2025 compared to 2024. But despite this, because of all this high demand for domestic travel, flights were still more full than normal. 84.4% of available seats were filled in October 2025 compared to the 12-month average of 81.6%. And average airfares in October this year were higher than any month since December 22 and 3.2% more than October last year. So according to Anna Breakey, quote, airfares are typically elevated during peak demand periods, but the higher passenger levels in October 2025 placed additional pressure on seat capacity, which pushed up airfares for consumers. So, yeah, it's
kind of like surge pricing in the air, isn't it?
it's a little bit. And interestingly as well, this is coming more discussion on airfares. Can you believe it?
I can.
There has been an announcement by the WA state government that there are certain regional routes, one-way trips to Perth within 1,000 kilometres have been capped at $199 to regional destinations, $299 for longer flights. But starting July next year, these flight caps will increase during high demand periods. So during these high demand periods, airports within 1,000 kilometers, the cap fare will go up to $265. For more than 1,000 kilometers, it goes up to $385, which is a pretty substantial leap.
Quite a hike.
Yeah, so it affects, this is according to the ABC, people in northern regional WA towns, Karratha, Broome, Exmouth, Kununurra, Newman, Paraburdoo, Port Hedland. There have been people who are saying, this one woman, a mother of three from Karratha, says her family will be paying an extra $860 to fly to and from Perth during school holidays in order to get to their family in Adelaide. She said that the changes meant that her family will now drive 16 hours to Perth to get that flight to Adelaide. So airfares seem to be the talk of the town across the country right now.
Yeah, it seems to me that, I mean, maybe I'm being dumb, and that is certainly entirely possible. But if there are more people wanting to fly, surely that should bring prices down?
If there are more people... So there's more, I mean, as our colleague Steve will tell you quite a bit, supply and demand. There are only so many seats on any given plane. And the more people want to buy those seats, the more the airfares will go up.
Yeah.
So, maybe it should be that, if more people are wanting to fly, then it should bring the prices down. But in an ideal world, perhaps, but planes are notoriously hard to add extra seats to.
Well, not with that attitude.
Yeah. Now, there is some good news in terms of airfares. Qantas is getting a lot of newer, larger planes. So the A321 XLR, for example, is longer than the 737-800 and has a few more seats. So hopefully that should bring down some of these prices. That there's the Jetstar's getting the A321 Neo LRs as well. They've got a whole lot of those. Virgin's getting the 737 MAX 8. I don't know if how many more seats the MAX 8 has than the 800. I think it's roughly the same. But of course the MAX 8 is more fuel efficient than the 737-800, which brings down costs on that side. So hopefully these newer planes will start bringing down airfares. But so kick in the teeth for people out in regional WA.
Yeah, it really is.
Kick in the teeth for people looking to fly basically anywhere, and no pay on delay scheme in sight, it would seem.
I mean, the justification makes sense, but I think you and I have probably had enough air travel over the last couple of years where delays have been absolutely a part of the deal. And it's like, yeah, for the consumer side, it feels like there should be something to motivate the carriers to do better. And yeah, pay on delay seems like it would be a good way to do it. But if we don't have the population, we don't have the population.
It'll be interesting to see if I will be interested to see if Bridget McKenzie starts making more noise about this, because Bridget McKenzie has been a very big advocate for pay on delay. So watch this space. I guess. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about the week's news. Back in a moment. All right, welcome back. You're listening to the Australian Aviation Podcast. Now, we spoke a bit about Qantas, and we spoke a bit about Qantas Link. We spoke a bit about regional, which Qantas Link falls under just before the break. There's been a bit of a shake-up in the upper echelons of Qantas, up in the C-suite. Qantas Link is going to be falling now under the auspices of Marcus Svensson, who is the chief executive of Qantas Domestic. So the regional arm is going to keep its separate air operator certificate, keep its separate accountabilities, but the airline is now going to be under the portfolio of Qantas Domestic. This is not an illogical move, some would say, for Qantas, because Qantas has long kind of lumped Qantas Domestic and Qantas Link together as part of the same sort of arm, when you're thinking about things like on-time performance, for example. Also, of course, Western Sydney International Airport, it was initially reported that Qantas would be flying as one of the first two airlines along with Jetstar. Now it turned out some time ago that was actually Qantas Link, not Qantas Domestic proper. But Rachel Yangoyan, the former CEO of Qantas Link, has been moved to a newly created role, Chief Technology, AI and Transformation Officer. So according to Vanessa Hudson, this role will have accountability for the group's IT and technology, AI strategy, data and analytics, and enterprise technology-driven transformation programs, which is a mouthful. David, we've spoken a bit about AI in airlines. I know that Virgin is looking to partner with OpenAI to integrate ChatGPT. What's your take on this?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where if someone in the market starts doing it, you need to start to think about whether or not you need to do it yourself. And of course, everybody thinks AI is the next big thing. I know you have some rather strong feelings about AI.
Yes, but let's leave that to a less family.
So the thing is, what Qantas are wanting to do is they've said they want to enhance the functionality of the Qantas app. They want to enhance check-in services. They want to make baggage tracking better. All of these things are good things, but the problem is I don't think anyone really knows the true capacity of AI yet and how it works in these examples. I will say one good thing. When people talk about AI being brought to a business, they will often worry about jobs being lost. In this instance, it's actually making for jobs, because part of this whole AI integration is opening up a new product innovation center in Adelaide. That's going to have 400 jobs, highly skilled technical jobs. And South Australia's Premier is very, very pleased to have that on his state soil. So AI, neither here nor there, creating jobs, great. Does it streamline the customer experience? I think that's where the proof in the pudding will be.
In addition, by the way, to all of these changes to Qantas Link and Qantas Domestic, Katrina Larritt, the Chief Customer Officer, who is leaving, I think, at the end of the year, will not be replaced directly. Her duties will be given to Andrew Glantz, the CEO of Qantas Loyalty, to reduce the size of the Qantas leadership team, and according to Vanessa Hudson, support continued discipline on costs. Cam Wallace, the CEO of Qantas International and Qantas Freight, has been given responsibility for in-flight and on-ground products and services. That includes the Qantas airport lounges. Now, there have been rumors floating around that a lot of executives and sort of upper management, like rumors of around 400 job cuts there. Those have been floating around. Qantas didn't really confirm that. But they did say that the new leadership teams will review their structures and look to make sure they are efficient as possible, which would seem to indicate potential job cuts are in the offing, but that's sort of up in the air, as it were. But watch this space in terms of Qantas. Now, moving to more of an international focus, there's been a survey put out by the Australian Airports Association, surveying 500 Australians, found that 78% were in favour of passportless systems for border processing at airports. So currently, when you come into an Australian airport, you put your passport in the smart gate and it scans your face and does all that, palaver. There's new systems coming in places like, I think, Changi Airport. Indonesia has got these coming in that use biometrics, so that you never actually have to take out your passport in order to get through the gate. And I think that's going to be on the cards at Western Sydney International Airport as well. Eventually, I know that they're going to have at some point they're going to be standing up biometrics so that you don't have to present your boarding pass, for example. 71% of people supported digitizing the incoming passenger card, which
I absolutely support that. That is one of the most old-fashioned things in air travel today.
Yes, and there have been trials of digital IPC equivalents coming in from New Zealand on some Qantas flights. 73% surveyed were confident using self-service technology at airports. Around 40% saw delays or insufficient service at the border over the past year. According to Simon Westaway, the chief executive of the AAA, the Australian Airports Association, Australia needs to catch up or risk falling behind. Record international air travel has driven Australian aviation growth up 9.6% last financial year. He says we must now lay the groundwork for a modern, future-ready border experience. He says a border bottleneck must never be a tourist's first impression of Australia, and returning Australians deserve an equally seamless arrival. We need bold ambitions and practical action. And this comes, by the way, shortly after the Airports Association's national conference, on the Gold Coast. That was last week. Scott Charlton, the CEO of Sydney Airport, revealed that that there was a big order of 40 smart gates that the airport got its hands on earlier this year. Only 8 of those have been installed, and the rest have just kind of been sitting around gathering dust, waiting to be installed.
What's holding them up? Is it a capacity thing? Is it?
I think Border Force has not yet been able to set them up with the existing IT infrastructure.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, again, this is sort of a cyber issue, isn't it, David?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the more data anyone holds, the more catastrophic any kind of data breach may be. But the fact is, you're already sharing your biometrics at the border anyway. That's what we all do now. We're used to staring into that little camera like I am right now during this podcast, standing with your feet in those spots and just waiting for the photo. That's standard. And there's no reason why we can't have that without the passport. Personally, I have just the worst luck with passports. 2 passports in a row. About a year in, they just fail to scan. And I immediately have to get out of line and go talk to an actual human, which is always horrible. So anything which cuts that out, which can just look me in the eye and go, yep, you're David Hollingworth, welcome back, or welcome wherever. I'm in favor of. And also taking the boarding pass out. I think we've all seen instances where you're waiting to board and they haven't got the app open on their phone, or their phone isn't even out, or they've whatever, and it holds up that boarding experience. And I think it just smooths that process. When you're already dealing with, traffic delays, possibly getting to and from an airport, when you're dealing with all of that stuff, any point where you can smooth the experience, I'm for.
Now, of course, some corners of the internet might start screeching at this point about social credit scores and government
they will.
intrusion. And what do we say to that, David?
We say, not today, Satan. Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're saying?
I don't know.
Brains?
Who knows? While we sort that out, David, as we all know, you are still the rightful king of Toowoomba. And moving a bit back to regional aviation, there's been a roundtable discussion at Toowoomba Wellcamp Airport late last month that has endorsed the idea that the Queensland government should be moving regional services from Brisbane over to Toowoomba. This is coming as Queensland is set to review its own regional airfare subsidies. Dr. John McVeigh, the chairman of the Toowoomba and Surat Basin Enterprise, and pretender David to your throne, said the discussion strongly endorsed the idea that Wellcamp should be the preferred hub for Western Queensland flights rather than Brisbane as it currently is. He said the flights are state government-supported routes, and while they are conducting their review, we are pointing to Wellcamp as a preferred location for many in Western Queensland from a health service perspective, education and industry, particularly the resources sector, whether that's gas or burgeoning renewable energy sector. He said we would like to see daily flights from Toowoomba to Roma and flights that we call north-south connectivity, so people from ports in southwest Queensland can fly to Toowoomba and then on to places like Sydney. It is far more convenient and meets demand better if Toowoomba is the hub. In terms of the airlines that will win the flights in the future, Rex is a current operator, but there are other options, and ultimately that is a state government decision. He said it will be about ensuring equity for those in southwest Queensland. Flights to Roma from Brisbane are full, heavily patronised by gas companies, can be very difficult for locals to get a flight. He said, we have heard numerous stories of people from Roma having to decide whether they drive to Toowoomba or fly to Brisbane and drive back to Toowoomba in a rental car, which isn't great.
Yeah, less than ideal.
So, yeah, it's one potential sort of wrinkle about this is that Toowoomba is only like a couple of hours to the west of Brisbane. It's not in the grand scheme of things very far. So what sort of difference, I guess, would it make if you were flying into Toowoomba rather than Brisbane? I suppose Brisbane would be more crowded.
Brisbane would be more crowded. Brisbane's going to be further, like, if you're in that southwestern part of Queensland, Brisbane's just, that much farther away. So if you assume that everybody, I guess, on one side of Toowoomba is most likely going to go to Brisbane, and everybody on the other side, if they can just go to Toowoomba, they'd do that. That seems to make sense, as long as Toowoomba has the infrastructure to handle being a regional hub of that caliber.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's a matter for the Wagners who own Toowoomba Well Camp, but it's sort of a Western Sydney International Airport argument, isn't it?
It's very, very similar. It's like, what is the catchment for these airports? Like, we talk all the time about Western Sydney International being a part of the Western Sydney catchment, and it will serve that part of Sydney and New South Wales very, very well. And yeah, I think this is a very similar argument.
Right, well, we're going to take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the week's news. Back in a moment. Well, welcome back. This is the Australian Aviation Podcast, coming to you on location in scenic Honolulu, which has nothing to do with the fact that I have the flu. An area of aviation that we don't often talk about on Australian aviation, but skydiving.
I'm fascinated by this one, because I had no idea that there was even like a regulated wage for a skydiving instructor. I just figured, I don't know, I've known a few skydiving instructors, and they're not the kind of person you think of like in terms of getting a steady wage. They're just like, they like jumping out of planes with people strapped to them. I don't know, I guess they get paid in random amounts of money and adrenaline. Well, but no, I'm wrong.
You'd probably want to be paid a decent wage if you were jumping out of planes for a living. So last Friday, skydiving instructors in Eastern Australia basically walked off the job at 8 sites across Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, protesting against low wages at Skydive Australia, which is owned by Experience Co, this big tourism company. Now, according to the Australian Workers Union, Experience Co has repeatedly pushed wage proposals that would send employees backwards. Negotiations have been stalled for nearly 10 months. The union said some offers have included cuts of between $20,000 and $100,000 a year, while the latest proposal would slash the minimum annual wage for skydiving instructors from $57,000 to just $49,000, with earnings dependent on a very low per-jump piece rate. The union says that the company has been looking to scrap these productivity bonuses that came in when instructors were brought in-house 3 years ago and push them back to wages that barely crack $50,000 a year. AW National Organizer Jonathan Cook said that Experience Co has delivered its strongest financial results since 2019, and these proposed pay cuts would undermine safety. He said, quote, "Tandem skydiving instructors literally take people's lives in their hands every time they go to work. If you're not investing in your people, you're undermining the trust that the industry has built up over years. You might want to give a once-in-a-lifetime gift this Christmas, but would you want your mum strapped to an underpaid instructor?"
It's a really good argument, notwithstanding the fact that I'd be strapping an urn to this instructor. But, hey, that's cool. That's fine.
Probably doesn't make a much difference for my mum either, in the same circumstances.
But no, it's a really good point. Like, I've never thought of, well, actually, I have a couple of times thought of throwing myself out of a perfectly good aircraft. But if I was going to be doing it, I'd want to be doing it in the company of someone who is well paid for the very, very skilled niche job that they are doing and that no one else can deliver. So yeah, give them more money.
Yeah. Cook went on to say, Experience Co's message is clear. They want to turn these skilled professionals into gig workers, paid less, working more, and carrying the same enormous responsibility. Would you jump out of a plane with an instructor who can't afford to feed their family while the company pockets millions?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to know that my guy or gal is well fed, not stressed, any of that. And just thinking about me, the aircraft, and getting safely to the ground, not thinking about the wage stress that they're under. I mean, I believe that's, being the bullshit that I am, I believe that should be standard for every Australian worker. But yeah, those guys.
Yeah. Now, Experience Co, for their part, says it has made 6 offers that would provide some of the best wages and conditions in the sector, including 6-figure salaries and job security. The chief executive, John O'Sullivan, said that the AW's demands would add massive costs that are not viable for the business. He said, quote, "Skydive Australia is effectively a small business that proudly employs mostly young people in regional Australia. These employment opportunities should be encouraged and fostered, not threatened by unreasonable and irresponsible actions by militant union bosses. We are at a loss to understand this action given the strength of our offers, and we call upon the union to return to the bargaining table with reasonable expectations so that we can come to an agreement as quickly as possible. This hit from the union is at a time when we are rebuilding together is reckless and unnecessary. I don't know. I feel like small business kind of rings hollow when the business is owned by a large travel company called Experience Co.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've got room to be a little bit more flexible.
But hopefully they won't try to be any more flexible when they're jumping out of the planes. You really want them to be locked in. Something we didn't cover on the website, but this was from Air New Zealand. Speaking of unique experiences.
This one's delightful. This really is.
The 4th of December, what Air New Zealand calls a first of its kind symphony in the sky flight. This was NZ 1331 from, where was it from? Well, it was from somewhere to somewhere else. I think it's probably like Auckland to Sydney, if I recall. Not detailed in the press release that I can see. But this they partnered with this with Symphony by Juco Events to deliver a full set, including performances from Shapeshifters P. Diggs, electronic icon DJ Dick Johnson. Yeah, good name.
Yeah,
and powerhouse vocalist Emily Williams. Also, instrumentalists Lewis McCallum and Matthew Ottignon.
Alongside sax, flute, and clarinet, filling the cabin with live orchestra moments.
Yeah, so it would have been a great time probably if you like music in the sky. I don't know if you would have wanted to be surprised with that. No, you wouldn't.
And also you'd want to like the idea. I mean, I don't think anyone would accidentally get on that flight. They go, "What the hell, music?" I just think it's a kind of neat thing. I really hope some of the music, maybe like some of the instrumental stuff, might have been Lord of the Rings soundtrack, but that's just me being tragic.
I doubt it.
I know.
But the Chief Customer and Digital Officer, Jeremy O'Brien at Air New Zealand, said, this flight, quote, showcased the power of connection. It brought together Kiwi artistry, a fiercely proud homegrown concept, and an audience who are ready for something unforgettable. The flight experience sold out in just 6 hours, showing how much our customers value these once-in-a-lifetime experiences. We are proud to support Symphony as it takes Aotearoa's creativity to the world, and the flight's energy showed just how strongly people respond when travel offers something truly new.
What I really like is it was the whole experience didn't end with the flight. That the customers went straight to an evening event of Symphony at the Sydney Opera House forecourt. So it's a whole experience.
Yeah, and it's nice when airlines do something quirky like this, I think.
Yeah. Like there was a Supermoon flight. One of the airlines did at one point the last year or two. Is that right?
Possibly. I know that there have been solar eclipse flights.
Yeah.
And, there have been flights where, to commemorate something or other, people have been, had parties in the sky. And Virgin Australia has its Pride flights for Mardi Gras and things like that. And, of course, flights over to Las Vegas, I think, for the rugby or something.
That'd be a rowdy flight, wouldn't it?
It would be. Finally today, a hearty congratulations to Qantas, which has, after half a decade, brought home the last of its A380s. When I saw this story in my inbox, in my Google alerts, I was like, that has to be old. Nope.
Yeah, I thought that too. Yeah.
Nope. Touchdown, I think last Friday. Last Friday at 8:30 a.m. VHOQC Paul McGuinness. Now, that was mothballed in 2020 along with the rest of the A380 fleet because of COVID. And since 2021, it has been in Abu Dhabi, both awaiting and undergoing maintenance and refurbishments. The largest maintenance check in the history of Qantas. Qantas now has all 10 of its operational A380s back up and running. OQC has had a extensive maintenance and a full cabin refresh to bring it in line with the rest of the A380 fleet. It's going to be serving as an operational spare over the holiday period. And then from the 1st of January, it's going to be allowing daily services on Sydney to Dallas-Fort Worth. Last year, according to Cam Wallace, the CEO of Qantas International, the A380s carried more than 1 million passengers on Qantas's international network. The return of the final A380 means that they can offer more seats on popular long-haul routes to destinations like Dallas, Singapore, and Johannesburg. He said, quote, teams of engineers around the globe came together to complete more than 100,000 hours of work to prepare the aircraft for flying again, from extensive checks to heavy maintenance, landing gear replacement, a full cabin refresh, and assessment flying with parts shipped by land, sea, and sky. When this aircraft lands, it will have been nearly 2,000 days since it last touched Australian soil, and we are proud, he said, to return it to the skies. Now, Qantas has returned all 10 of those A380 to service. OQA, B, C, D, H, K, J, G, L, I, VHOQE and VHOQF have been scrapped. So Qantas has gone from 12 A380s to 10. The Flying Kangaroo will be retiring the A380s starting in the 2032 financial year. They're looking to replace them with A350s.
That doesn't seem like a long in-air career for an aircraft like the A380. Honestly.
Well, the A380, it's I think Qantas started getting them in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, the story of the A380, because Airbus kind of made it for a market that was no longer existent by the time that it was, or a lot less by the time that it was coming into service. Yeah. Back when Airbus started conceiving of the A380 as a competitor to the 747, hub and spoke was a lot bigger, and so you wanted to have a lot of people traveling on big aircraft into and out of large hub airports. That's less nowadays, but there are still airlines like Qantas and like Emirates and like Singapore and Qatar Airways and Etihad that do need these bigger aircraft to move a lot of passengers at once. And, when you're going, Captain Richard Ducrethny last week when I was speaking to you on the podcast, look out for that over the Christmas break, he basically said, like, if you need to move a lot of passengers through a capacity-restricted airport, so like an airport that, has a restriction on how many aircraft can land there.
You want to have the biggest aircraft possible, carrying the most people.
Possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the A380 is very, very good for getting a lot of people through Dubai.
It is a big, comfortable aircraft that can carry a lot of people.
And it will be a shame to see the A380 go.
It is, because it's one of those evenings which is going to stick in my mind forever. It was just so weird. It was when I think the last of those A380s flew out of Sydney. Where I was living at the time was right under the flight path. I could see the landing lights from my fourth floor window. And there hadn't been a flight for a while. It was well into COVID at that stage. And I'm sitting there with my partner watching, of all things, Tiger King. So it makes it even more memorable night, as these giants just take off and fly. And I sat there realizing that's the last time I'm going to hear an aircraft in a long time. And sure enough, it was. So that night and that aircraft will it's always going to stick with me. So I'm really glad to see them back on the ground. Before they get back in the air.
You're back in the air, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've still got time with the Qantas A380s. They're going to be around for at least another 7 years. So
excellent. Hopefully I can get to fly on one again.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to fly on a Qantas A380, be sure to do that before 2032, because after that they'll start being retired.
The clock is ticking.
Speaking of ticking clocks, that's about all the time we have for the Australian Aviation Podcast for today. Thank you to my co-host David Hollingworth.
Thank you for having me, Brains.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. And we will be back next week for our final regular editorial podcast of the year, when we will wrap up the year that was, assuming I'm back from Honolulu. In the meantime, thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.